Hi, it's James Harrison. It's time for Thursday Thoughts, and today we're going to talk about Charlie Watts, the drummer who passed away, the drummer for the Rolling Stones. And so if you don't know who that is, I'll get into that in a second. First off, I want to say it is Tuesday evening right now. I'm shooting this video. Charlie Watts passed away today. This will be posted on Thursday for Thursday Thoughts. So first off, for those people who were older, or excuse me, younger, who grew up in the technology era of the internet and whatnot, you need to go back and just listen to some of the Stones stuff and don't watch. Just listen for a minute and really listen to what Charlie Watts did. To me, I was a little bit late to the party. I mean, I heard the stuff that was on the radio when I was a kid, and I tried to cop some of those feels and everything like that, but it was really interesting trying to, when I first started getting into bands and listen to some of the Rolling Stones music and try to play Satisfaction and try to play Brown Sugar and try to play Jumping Jack Flash and try to play something like Sympathy for the Devil or Paint It Black, or even some of the 80s stuff like Waiting on a Friend and whatnot. There's a unique feel that Charlie Watts had about his playing, and it's hard to describe. Now, I grew up when we couldn't watch YouTube. We couldn't, watch videos to do it. We had to drop the needle on the record and listen and go back and listen again and everything. And it was very difficult to figure out some of the stuff that Charlie Watts was doing. Not because the parts were difficult, but because there was just a new, unique feel to it. And one of the things that when I did finally see, I never saw the Stones live, let me clarify that. When I did finally see Charlie Watts perform on a TV show with the Stones, or eventually some kind of a video clip, was that he played most of the beats that he played on the hi-hat. He didn't hit the hi-hat and the snare at the same time. And he would be playing, and he would lift. I don't know if I'm going to cut this out of the... He would lift the hi-hat note, and he played traditional grip, and tilted the snare usually, and he would lift that hi-hat note and hit the snare, not hi-hat and snare together, which is what most people did. Charlie Watts didn't do that. Therefore, I think one of the unique things about his feel was that it allowed him to place the snare wherever he wanted to, slightly ahead, slightly behind, and create something that was a unique feel versus following a perfectly metronomic eighth note on the hi-hat. And there would be a little bit of a lilt, and I've said this before about a lot of the British drummers, including Ringo. They had something where even when they played straight eighth notes, it wasn't always straight. And so Charlie would be playing like 1 and 3, and there would be like a little tug, a little push and pull in there. And you throw that in with the guitars and the bass lines and then Mick Jagger and everything. It just created something very unique, and obviously something that's been long lasting for years. The Stones are unique. It's a blues-based rock band, and they did it, and they did it well. Again, I never saw the Stones live. I wish I would have, but I didn't. I always admired Charlie Watts' feel. Again, the parts weren't difficult to tackle, but when you record yourself and then you listen back to it, dang it, what am I doing that it doesn't feel right? That's the gift of Charlie Watts, his feel. Now, over time, I read a lot of articles about Charlie Watts. He loved jazz, and he actually put out a jazz recording at one point. He had a lot of respect for jazz drummers and whatnot, but it just seems like the more you read about him, the more you understood that everybody thought this guy, Charlie Watts, was a class act, a role model, if you want to call it that. I can remember watching videos of a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and he didn't show a lot of emotion when he played, but he was rock solid and right there and playing with a unique feel. And he's part of a class of drummers, including Ringo. I put Don Henley in that class, and I put Stan Lynch in that class with Tom Petty. And there's a lot more. Levon Helm, I'm probably leaving out a ton. But the point is, these drummers, to me, part of what their legacy is creating a feel, but playing on something that's long lasting and stands the test of time. And drumming styles change and stuff over time a lot, but what they've done always seems to work. And sometimes to me, they might as well just be famous for what they didn't do. They didn't overplay. They didn't throw, as many notes as they could in there. They left space, they played for the music, and it worked out well. Now back to Charlie for a second. It seemed like he never really did anything more than just use the basic setup. Rack, single rack tom snare, single floor, maybe possibly double floor in some cases, basic cymbals, and always had some unique cymbal sounds and stuff like that, and just had a unique feel. So, for a lot of people who are younger, again, go back and just listen for a minute. Use your ears instead of your eyes to listen to music for a bit, and I think you'll find out what the true gift of Charlie Watts is. And then you can watch and listen and enjoy it maybe a little bit more, because again, you're growing up in an era where so many people hear with their eyes, and I'm talking about hearing with your ears. And that's the brilliance of Charlie Watts and the music he played. So many. I mean, I could start naming off Stones tunes, but I'd probably leave them out if I tried, because there's just so many to name. But again, he's not on my wall here, but he's definitely an influence. And like I said, it took me a while to really understand a lot of what was there, because I was just listening to the basics of it and then playing it basically, not realizing there was a little bit of a snaky feel in there, and the hi-hat and snare weren't always hitting together. And when you see some of the live clips or hear some of the live clips, he almost approaches it in a jazz. He has a solid 2 and 4, don't get me wrong, but he randomly throws fills in improvisationally. It's like, I'm sure if you heard or saw them every show on tour, he probably played it a little bit differently every time. He doesn't seem very formulated. So anyway, rest in peace to Charlie Watts. Again, one of the greatest drumming influences ever. 80 years old. I don't know what was the cause of his passing. I'm sure we'll find out more. But either way, he is one of those guys that often imitated, never duplicated, and will be around for a while. Thanks.